manage our economic decline.
Nikki Kay.
Mr Speaker, I am delighted to be able to speak in this general debate today. I have been waiting to give this speech for a very long time. As the MP for Auckland Central, I want to dedicate this speech to the people of New Zealand that work in farms and forests, that support the primary industries. Because as the MP for Auckland Central, and I have been the subject before of slight jabs from my colleagues in terms of my support for the rural industries. In fact, one person said to me today, "You do know, Nikki, that for a good latte you need milk." And I wanted this to be the discussion of my speech today, Mr Speaker, because the fact is our economy and this side of the House has an economic plan that is focused on an unrelenting support for our primary industries. And we acknowledge that our export-led recovery has been driven by the rural workers of New Zealand. We know that a large chunk of our economic performance is because of the primary industries. 71% of our economic performance comes from our exports from primary industries. 32 billion is what it's worth our economy. Where are our exports up, Mr Speaker? They're up in meat areas, they're up in dairy areas. In fact, I'll give you the figures here. We're up 12% in 2010 in meat exports, and dairy exports we're up 20%. So, Mr Speaker, it is absolutely unbelievable that we have an opposition at a time where New Zealanders are struggling, whereby our country is laden in debt, where they are promoting policies that are harmful to this area. And let's talk about some of those policies that they've promoted. They've promoted additional costs in terms of the ETS scheme. They've promoted capital gains tax in terms of land, Mr Speaker. And you compare this to our party, who has been unrelenting in our support, whether it's through science and innovation, Mr Speaker, in terms of the 50 million that we're putting into key research and climate change, Mr Speaker, whether it's through all of the initiatives that we're trying to ensure that young New Zealanders have more opportunities in our primary industries. We heard today about the Youth Guarantee additional places that we're offering. We also know, for instance, that the Honourable Paula Bennett has been working really hard in the area of Auckland to ensure that some of our young people have greater placements in terms of jobs. And what we're focused on is ensuring that there are real career options for young New Zealanders in our primary industries, because we know, when we look at some of the job figures, I think in Trade Me today, there are jobs in our primary industries, but unfortunately we're having to get new immigrants to go there because we need to make sure that some of our young people are work ready, and all of this government's programs, instead of the rhetoric from the opposite side, focus on real pathways to work for those young people to have jobs in our primary industries, because we recognise that whilst we may hear a whole lot of clutter from the opposition about how we need to diversify our economy, the fact is our exports, a major area of our export growth, comes from the primary industries. And I'm proud, as the MP for Auckland Central, yes, I represent an urban electorate, but I've also got some rural areas like Great Barrier Island, and I'm proud to stand here today and give my support for all of those rural workers around the country that have worked so hard for the last 3 years to ensure that we have an export-led recovery. And we've got more to do, Mr Speaker. We've got so much more to do. If you look at some of our achievements, whether it's through the 35 million that we've put in Irrigation Acceleration Fund, whether it's through the primary sector innovation, the 70 million that we put around the Primary Growth Partnership, whether it's through the 45 million that we put into the Global Research Alliance, we understand that the way that we're going to improve the lives of so many New Zealanders is to lift our standard of living and have an economic plan. You contrast that to the opposition, who every time they speak, they just talk about what they won't do. They are anti-everything. You contrast that to our party, who has good policies in welfare, good policies in ensuring young people get into jobs, good policies in investing in science and innovation, particularly in areas that are in the private primary industry, like food innovation, because we know our opportunities lie in countries like Asia, and we know that if we can increase our exports and we can support countries like China and Singapore that are within Asia, Asia. We know that we can improve our standard of living if we can support those rural workers and our primary industries. This side of the House has a plan, that side of the House is anti-everything, and this side of the House has the support of New Zealanders because we are focused on a strong economic plan supporting our primary industries.
Julianne Gent.